You want to fight crime? Let's get dangerous.
And yes, it is showtime, and we're back. It is another Saturday, and we're a little bit late because we had a little bit of company here in the last couple of minutes, and we are about to get ready to rock and roll through this episode here. It may be a little bit of a short episode here based upon a couple of things, but nevertheless, we are here. So we're going to say welcome on in, and I hope that you are having a great Saturday here. And nevertheless, we also have a lot of the stuff on the business end of things to talk about here, such as stupid o'clock. Wait, hold on. Stupid o'clock happening right now. Happening right now is not happening at our end. They're actually running right now. I still have to update this title card and everything here. There's no last man standing afterwards here, but that gives you a little bit of a respite until Monday morning when you have Nicholas Tucker, to never mind the furthermore at 10 a.m. Eastern. And then never forget about Comic Book Spectrum, which will be right here on this channel at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, 8 p.m. Eastern. And that brings us to one of our favorite parts of the show, which is new comic book pickups for the week here. And we have a tiny stack of books that we could talk about here that came in this week here, and we could talk about them very quick here, and we're going to talk about them real quick here. So first we have I believe this is the 2024 1 in 50 variant of Storm number 3 that came in this week, and I believe that this here is the Rise of the Power of X number 1 Storm cover here. We got that one as well. And then we got the Immortal X-Men number 1, another copy of the David Nakayama. This one is the trade dress one. Now, the ones that I have here, I have the black version cover of this, as well as the white version cover of this. But this is the first trade dress version I have gotten of that. And then we end up getting another relatively cheap copy of Gotham City Sirens number 1, which was pretty nice. Now, the grade that they had on it was a 9.2, and I'm looking at it here, and I really think that it may be a bit better than a 9.2. The only thing that I could see here is maybe spine, but I don't see any real ticks or anything. But then again, I haven't seen the back of it as of yet here. And then we're going to go into some older books that came in. We got another Marvel Features number 1. This is the first, well, actually, I should say first series of Red Sonja, but this is Red Sonja after her appearance in Conan. You know, after her first appearance in Conan, they did a short little 7-issue Marvel feature volume dealing with her as a character. And then we end up getting Marvel Adventures number 1, which is pretty nice. This is featuring Daredevil. And then on top of that, And this is one of the ones that are up here. It's like, you know what? Even though it has a little bit of water damage here, it's still a decent little pickup here. And I know some people who collect this title may be a little bit going to be on the jealous side here, but there it is. Marvel Team Ups Annual #1. This is from 1976 here. We got Spider-Man and the X-Men together. So this is the first king size annual #1 for Marvel Team Ups here. And then from Gold Key, I forgot where this came from here, from 1971 from Western Publishers. We got the brand new Microbots #1, which is pretty nice. But the thing that I am more happy about here, even though it was a pretty penny, I finally got one of a book that has Matt Baker art in there. Somebody that I'm actually starting to want to get to study here and study his artwork and how he goes about doing his drawings and everything here. And that book happens to be an actual copy of Jungle Comics 103. No, this is not a reprint. This is an actual copy of Jungle Comics 103 here. Like I said, it cost me a bit here, but nevertheless, you know, I got it here. We got one here. I kind of wish that it was in a bit better condition here. I mean, it's like we got a little bit of, like, you know, tape there and everything here, but this is, let me see what year this is from. This is 1948 Jungle Comics 103 here. And the reason why I got it here was there was, yeah, the Matt Baker art on Camilla. That's the artwork. That's Matt Baker artwork that's being done here. And it's kind of interesting here. I mean, it's a little bit chipping and everything here, but you know, if I go ahead and clean this up a bit and everything a little bit, it may be worth, you know, for preservation purposes to go ahead and get it slabbed. But I would like to kind of sort of lightly read it and everything. I'm not trying to get like the best possible grade for it, but it is good history as far as the artwork that's in here. And we got a little bit of a name there. So we got, I don't know why names are in this book here. Frank, this like, it seems like Frank Doyle, Whitman. So I'm not understanding some of this stuff here, but yeah, this is it. Oh, somebody actually wrote the names of the artists for each one of them in here, because yeah, Camilla is definitely Matt Baker artwork. But that's the book that is the, if I could say, is the grab for the week here, which is the Jungle Comics 103 here. There's going to be more books coming in over the next couple of weeks here. So we got a lot more to look forward to. As far as that is concerned, the collection update is pretty much what it is as of right now. These graphics are not up to date as of yet, but we're still moving forward and everything to that magnitude here. With a lot of our collections dealing with X-Men, Wonder Woman. I'm getting some more Wonder Woman books in, but nothing to move the number down as far as missing issues here and getting better copies of stuff that I didn't have here. I'm not going to do a countdown for Lois Lane because my goal is not to fulfill the Lois Lane Volume 1 as of yet, but we got some more Lois Lane books coming in. But we're trying to get, you know, books that I normally want to collect and have in my collection here as a whole. But with that being stated here, the production update, and we're going to talk about the topic pretty much all at the same time here. So without further ado, let's go into the production update. And the best way to deal with the production update here is just go ahead and share the screen real quick. I am, working on the next 5 pages of the anthological story that's going in Legends of the Giantess Slayer here. So we got the first 5 of the 8 pages of this chapter completed here, and I accidentally hit that by accident. I didn't want to make it bigger just as of yet here, but just to give you guys an idea of where we're at and how far along that we are. We got to finish the last 3 pages of this chapter, and then that way I believe that would mean we have 4 chapters done that we could put in issues from like issue number 4 on. So it's pretty much what we're doing, or at least what I'm doing now, at least with all the stories that I'm creating for this anthology series here, is I'm doing a lot of the chapters beforehand, and then that way when it's time to put together issues, we will have things already ready to go where we could actually pace out a lot of the stories in its own time frame. That way it's like one issue may have, chapter 3 of this one story, and then you might miss an issue before you get into chapter 4 and stuff to that magnitude, because we're covering at least maybe 5 to 6 different stories all at one time here. And the one consistent thing is the Legends 101, that short story, that, well, I shouldn't say short story, but that college like lecture is going to be in every issue, kind of introducing a lot of different other topics that could fall into the aspect of the actual series itself. But this is what we have been working on and everything to that magnitude here. So as far as talking about the setbacks and everything, it just comes back down to life and really concentrating and breaking down stories and just understanding where you're at in the bigger scheme of things when it comes to production here. People underestimate or think that, making comics is easy. Making comics is not easy. Whether you're an artist or writer or anything to that magnitude, it is not easy. And you have to literally study the craft. It's like people think like any writer could write a comic book. No, not every writer could write a comic book. Writers do write, and they can put things out there on paper or within a scripting program and everything to that magnitude, but not every writer could write a comic. The reason being is that writer has to study the art form of comics, because it's not just straight to the point writing plots and writing scripts and writing all this stuff straight out for people to have the same, for people who are across the board on that project having the same vision here. It doesn't work out that way all the times. It has to be more along the lines you're writing in such a way to tell a story that is broken down in smaller time sequences, which we call panels. That's a little bit different. It's almost getting to the point of like writing for storyboards. And writing for storyboards is not the exact same thing as writing a script for like a screenplay. They're all different things here. So you have to kind of like study the craft in order to get better at it. The same thing as far as being an artist for comic books. You have to study the craft. You have to study the techniques. You have to study what works, what doesn't work. Panel structures. Like, for example, and let me go ahead and bring back up the screen here. I should have did it this way here. Apologies for that. When to use a 8-panel page, when to use a 6-panel page, when to use a single splash page, stuff to that magnitude. All of that plays into the actual story that is being told and the pacing of the story and how everything goes here. So, one of the things that I could honestly say here is this. when people say that they're comic book creators, but they don't read the medium that they work in, it kind of makes it suspect. It's like, how can you say that you work in a medium that you don't participate in or read or study or just really get into? And that's one of the things that kind of makes me leery about a lot of the modern stuff that's coming out now, especially with all the newer tools that coming out. And no, I'm not going to get into the whole AI nonsense and everything to that magnitude here. And I call it nonsense because I'm more of a traditional person here. I see AI as a tool. However, the way that people are nowadays, they believe that the tool compensate their lack of knowledge and their lack of training from the traditional, and it doesn't. Yeah, you could produce something that is passable, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're on the same level as a lot of these other people who have taken years to dedicate to this craft to develop into where they are at right now. So it's kind of like one of those things where you have to look at it. It's like, do I take this shortcut and not learn what I need to know to have longevity? Or I play the long game, learn what I need to know, perfect my craft, perfect my own style, and let people find me based upon my style. Two big differences here. One is, not being reliant on the tool that you use, and the other one is pretty much, admitting that your knowledge base will never grow because you become reliant on the tool itself. But saying all that to say, it is just kind of like one of those things that you just have to look at as a whole here, as far as why things are the way that it is here. So, I have done, shows about AI and what AI can do and how the tools work and all this other stuff. I'm not going to revisit that. It is what it is. Am I going to be like, take a stance as like, oh, no AI and blah, 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 blah? Probably not, because those who know me know I'm not going to go to an AI tool to produce what I've been producing for almost 20 years. Yes, I have, like Legends of the Giants and Slayer, Primetime Saturday Night. I use DAW Studio, but using DAW Studio is not the same as using generative AI tools to make the books. Two different things. I still have to come back in to letter this, to add sound effects. Still have to get this edited by somebody else. I still have to actually create the characters that's in each one of these panels and everything inside of DAW Studio. It is not as easy as it looks here. I'm not going in, typing one prompt, and the rest is being done for me. I'm literally doing the work to produce the pages that you're seeing here, as opposed to, doing quick little bullet points and let the generative AI fill in the gaps here. And that's one of the reasons why, I don't really knock people who use the generative AI, because of the simple fact that it is a skill within itself, but it's not the same type of skill that goes in the traditional aspect of it. The best way I could put it here is this. If you ever worked on a major project, and let's just say it's like your project is baking a cake, you might be the best person who ever willed a hand mixer, and you get the batter and stuff for whatever cake, whatever dough or anything, to a way that is supposed to be each and every time. You don't even have to have a second thought about it. You grab that hand mixer, go to town, and you're good. But what happens if they took away that electric hand mixer and they give you an egg beater? Can you do the exact same thing? That's the difference here. that I try to get people to understand about why, you can't really be overly aggressive about no AI, while at the same time understanding that those who truly support it, for people who don't know the traditional, is going to, the fact that they're going to be so limited because they see what the tool does, but they have no traditional training to really make this tool over here truly sing in the way that it needs to sing. Perfect example here, the electric mixer versus the egg beater. And welcome on in, Sawyer. Tom's lawyer. Welcome on in. Hopefully, you are having a great afternoon and everything. Oh, well, I should say evening because it's almost 10 o'clock here, or almost 9:30. But that's where I'm at with this, and I'm glad that some people are taking the no AI stance here. For me, it serves no purpose to come out on social media to say we take a no AI stance. It's like, of course we don't take of course we don't take a pro AI stance because we're traditionalists here. We're trying to improve on our own techniques, our own penciling, our own inking, our own artwork, our own use of, using DAW Studio, or improving our techniques in lettering and editing and getting everything to the point that if we have to, we could. But, logic is like logic does. Not everybody's going to have the common sense to see it in that aspect here, and sometimes it's not worth the time and effort to argue with people in that format here, whether it's for or against here. And it's like, I agree. I feel like AI is self-defeating anyway. No one will pay for AI slop when AI has taken their jobs and income. It's just a big pump and dump scheme. Not only is it that, and this is real reason why, if you really want me to start talking about the AI controversy, the real problem with AI is not the fact that people are using the tools and creating, as you say, slop. The real problem with AI is copyright and trademark infringement. And the reason that comes into play is that generative AI does not come up with stuff from scratch. It borrows from data that is fed into them. So if you're going to use a generative AI tool to create comics, guess what's getting fed into them? Comic books, which means that it's going to be comic books fed into them, whether by legal means, which means that, the company who put out the software bought the rights and privileges to at least enough comic books to have the AI use that as a whole, or in most cases, like I see a lot on DeviantArt and Grok and all these other places here, people are misusing other people's copyrights on their private photos, on people portfolios, and all this other stuff to generate the stuff that you're seeing now. And that's the thing, it is what it is. That's the true fight that us as artists have to take on the AI aspect of it. But not a lot of us see that. And that's the major thing here. And let's see, exactly, it steals from other artists. Exactly, that's the major thing here. Unfortunately, unfortunately for the publishing companies to feed only their own comics into the AI, so they don't own the rights to everything the AI uses, which is bad for artists, which is 100% true. And that's Matt. What's going on, Matt? But that's the key thing, and I don't see artists truly leading the charge in the copyright war of AI. Now, one of the problems that we have with the copyright war in AI, with the use of AI, is the fact that the majority of artists that work for these major publishers are doing their work as a work for hire as opposed to staff artistry, which means that you're signing, pretty much a contract that does not give you 100% rights to your work, meaning that the publishing company has say on the actual work that you do here for their established characters. Now, it doesn't stop you from using your work for things for like portfolio reviews and stuff to that magnitude to say, I have done this for this company to promote yourself. But you yourself, unless it's built into your work for hire contract, does not have rights to say, I design, Superman's fifth cape or Superman's fifth outfit, and I have exclusive rights to it. Now, that was one of the things that I believe that had happened in the video game fields when they started using a lot of Jim Lee's designs from X-Men, because if you remember, one of the things that came up was that a lot of the Jim Lee designs started popping up with X-Men Children of the Atom, if you remember that fighting game. And then that followed on to X-Men versus Street Fighter with Gambit and Rogue, as they started using Jim Lee's designs and everything, and they had to work it out with Marvel to get the okay for it, because Marvel owned the rights to those designs. It was just one of those things that they had to work out here, which goes back to the whole thing about copyrights. Like Tom's lawyer said, the bigger publishing companies can feed all of their archives of pages into these AI systems and pretty much generate books until they're blue in the face. You won't have any new innovations or anything to that magnitude, but you do have people coming in as so-called writers of prompts to do comic book stories based upon prompts, and the generative AI creates the 24, or I should say, I'm so used to 24-page books, 24 to 28-page books, because that's what I'm typically do for the stuff for CGC Studios. So like our books are usually 28 pages, somewhere between 24 to 28 pages for a standard book, unless you get into like Prime Time Saturday Night, which is normally 52 pages. But that's a whole different story. But for most publishing companies, doing like a 16-page book is easy. Once you have all of that data, pages, inks, and all this other stuff, where the generative AI could actually use that as a base to create further comic book pages from. Yes, it hurts the standpoint for artists. It would cause them to have less staff artists, because if a project goes behind schedule, it's quite easy to say, hey, such and such, this person is falling behind. Let's go ahead and generate what you need to do, whatever we need for these particular pages based upon what the writer says on page 12, 14, and 18. They type in the prompts for those pages. The generative AI does it. They hand it off to the editor for it to be approved, and then you want to see continuity errors between the staff artist and what the generative AI comes up with. But that's the nature of the beast as of right now. That's just how it is, what it is, and there need to be more talk about this. There need to be more, and I know a lot of artists are fighting. This is the reason why there's a lot of people saying no AI on their work and everything, but that's not the reason why they need to say no AI. They do need to have what I would consider that come to Jesus meaning with contract to say, I want control over the copyright. If I go to like DC and I start drawing Wonder Woman stuff, the Wonder Woman stuff that I draw, I want some copyrights to the work that I did outside of just what I outside of the portfolio type stuff. That way, if I have those rights, I could have a say to say, no, you cannot put this up into the generative AI, but I might allow you to have like, simple sketches or stuff that I did, but you wouldn't have like the final page that I completed for you to generate other stuff with here. What do you think is better, Absolute Batman or Batman Beyond? Being that I'm not a Batman fan outside of Flashpoint, because I like Thomas Wayne, I would still have to go with Batman Beyond, only because of how they did Terry McGinnis as opposed to Bruce in this newer alternate reality. To me, Absolute Batman is pretty much is comes off still a tad bit like what if Bruce Wayne had a lifestyle like Peter Parker, where he started from the ground up, didn't have really the money, didn't have like the financial backing and everything, didn't have Wayne Enterprises and all this other stuff. He came up with everything from scratch. He had to build himself up and do all this other stuff. And what I like about how they changed a lot of the villains and everything, the villains and stuff, with Batman, I still feel that they're cool. He has some very cool villains, but I just don't like Bruce Wayne as a character. That's just how I am. But if you ask me which one is better, I still feel that Batman Beyond is better. Yeah, Terry. Yeah, I can see why people love Terry, because I hate to go back to animated, because animated and what was in animated is not in the comic books per se. And the one animated special where Terry actually got to talk to an older Amanda Waller about how he came about, spoke volumes. Because even Amanda Waller back in like the early 90s, because you remember Batman Beyond is like really flash forward. In the early 90s, Amanda Waller knew one thing and one thing only. It's like the world could not survive without having some sort of Batman or some sort of person that could pick up the mantle of Bruce Wayne. And the extent that she went through to pretty much have everything pan out the exact same way that Bruce lived his life, only for her two operatives to turn their backs on the mission, spoke volumes. But that's on the animated side. The animated side explained it that way. The comic books explain Terry a little bit different, but it parallels, but it's not exactly the same here. The fact that they didn't go the route where Terry's parents, were not unalive, did change the dynamic, but also still made Terry who he was, and similar enough to Bruce, where he was a suitable fit to have the mantle in that time frame, which is great. But that's my take on Batman Beyond here. But the comic books, to me, it expands on the story a little bit differently, and Terry does hit a little bit differently, and he to me in the comic books makes more sense than what he did on the actual WB cartoon series here. Because on the TV series, it's like Terry to me was kind of like a little bit more of a hothead instead of cold and calculating. But then again, they kind of made Bruce a crotchety old man in that time frame, instead of the if I could say it, instead of the stoic, the stoic, I don't give a damn type trainer. But that's to me, that's to me the difference here, because in the comic books, Bruce was more stoic than anything, instead of just crotchety and cranky and all this other stuff like he was on the animated series. It says thoughts on Avengers Doomsday. I really don't have any true thoughts on anything truly MCU related until after I watched the movie. Do I think it's going to do well? I don't know. Do I think people have like things to worry about as far as whether or not they're going to like the movie? Not so much. I don't try to put expectations out there to be like, oh, I'm expecting this, that, and the other to happen in Doomsday. But the one thing that we did talk about in Comic Book Spectrum this past Thursday is that everybody kept saying, there's no setup for Doomsday. There's no setup for Doomsday. It's like, yes, there was setup for Doomsday. The setup for Doomsday was the after credit scenes in Fantastic Four First Steps, even though we see Doom for just maybe for no more than 2 to 3 minutes. But the whole plot play was around Franklin. If you remember that scene, Doom was talking to Franklin. Doom did not confront anybody else in the Baxter building. He talked to Franklin. And everybody got scared because why Franklin? How powerful is Franklin really going to be? And then we saw that it was Doom. It was like, that's a decent, segue into what could be. But I had a sneaky suspicion that it wasn't going to be like, oh, Doom is going to try to do something with Franklin, blah, 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 blah. But it was a good way to introduce that Doom is coming. And he's letting Franklin know something that nobody else is going to know. Yeah, Franklin is mad powerful. And, well, here's the thing. I'm not certain if you have read Earth X. In Earth X, Franklin becomes Galactus. That's how powerful Franklin really is. Franklin eventually becomes Galactus in Earth X, if you ever read Earth X. And it's interesting. Earth X was a very interesting read. So if you do have the time to go out there and read it, go ahead and read Earth X. It is worth the time and effort. You might enjoy it. You might enjoy it in the bigger scheme of things here. But yes, Franklin is more powerful than what they let on. And then if you haven't read Earth X, if you have read the original Heroes Reborn series, they said that the Heroes Reborn universe, was born because Franklin's powers finally manifested, and he literally created a world in this blue ball that he was carrying around with him all the time. That was the Heroes Reborn universe that he controlled, that he made in his hand, and it was just there. So that gives you an idea about how powerful Franklin could be as a child. Now, what they did in Fantastic Four is a whole nother can of worms, which I just don't really acknowledge as much here. In a way, I kind of wish Parallax was here, because she could tell you a lot more about Fantastic Four than I did. I only read a few issues of Fantastic Four, and I'm just like, nah, this ain't for me. But yeah, Franklin is more powerful than what people know at this point. And there's other adjacent characters like Franklin. You have Valeria, which is supposed to be a Richards, his younger sister, who happens to follow in Doom. Who happen to be like one of the followers of Doom here, just like Christoph, Doom's actual son. Christoph actually tried to follow in Victor's footsteps here. But the one thing that the one thing that I kind of wish that they would actually do sometime here, and they mention it in the comic books here, is that I really want Marvel to maybe take the time to actually do the series that was mentioned by the Watcher. And the only reason why the reason why the Watcher is always like, no, with all the stuff that Doom does, and he you know, him being able to see into the multiverse the way that he does, it's like all the messed up stuff that Doom does, it's like he really is not doing it to be evil. He's really trying to do it to bring about utopia. And he actually stated, it's like he actually did it. He actually in one of those in one of those multiverses, there is a world where Doom brings about utopia. And I kind of wish that they actually did a mini series about that. And what ends up happening is that the heroes from 616 goes to that universe to try to bring that Doom back to 616 to solve a problem that they couldn't handle in 616. That to me would be a very good mini series, or a very good, you know, crossover tie-in for Doom, to have that universe is Doom, the one that brought utopia to the whole entire world, to be asked to come to 616 to help them fight off something that no other person a Doom could but a Doom could figure out and fight. That would be interesting. But that's just me as a writer thinking, you know, thinking outside the box in that aspect here. But you know, with MCU, you never know what direction they're going to go until they actually do it here. Just like with the Marvels, it's like they went a whole different direction than what I thought they was going to go in. Did I enjoy it? Yes, but the problem that I had with it is that they try so hard to make Carol likable instead of just making it 100% more about, you know, the transitioning of Monica to being Photon and Kamala being Miss Marvel. If they would have just stuck to their guns here and just let Carol be in the background as, you know, this is the reason why there are the Marvels, because of the simple fact that, you know, the mantles that I once held is now about to be, you know, confirmed to them, type deal. But no, they have to throw her in there and try to make her more likable and all this other stuff here. Yeah, that's definitely is an interesting idea. I'm sure Doom is still seeking to create a utopia. Yeah, but you gotta go though. Okay, not a problem. Thanks for stopping by here, Tom Sawyer, and I appreciate the conversation here. So hopefully we'll catch up on the next Saturday right here on comic on from the desk here. We could talk some more about stuff that you like here. But with all that being stated here, you know, that's just kind of like where things are with the MCU. As far as I'm concerned, it's like I don't have any expectation here, and the MCU kind of made me that way. You know, not to have any preconceived expectation as far as what they want, as far as or what you want for them to do in a actual Marvel movie. Now, characters I would like to see in a Marvel movie, since they have done a lot of television and everything, I still wait for She-Hulk to be in a movie. Hopefully she'll be in Doomsday. They're saying a lot of the older characters are coming back for Doomsday, so I'm kind of happy about that here. But you know, I have no expectations, no reason to really think about it one way or the other beyond that here. But getting back to the original topic here, you know, setbacks are what they are, but the thing about it is that you have to overcome it. You know, like I said, like I said before, people don't realize time crunches and everything when it comes to life in general, especially when you produce. literature and comic books and stuff to that magnitude here, because like time that you take away to, let's say, enjoy other hobbies such as like video games, that's time that you could be putting into what I showed you as far as the pages and stuff is concerned here, as far as doing the actual artwork and stuff. Time that you spend with family and friends, or time that could be spent elsewhere. Time where you're on your 9 to 5 job could be time used to be making money from, the stuff that you actually produce and trying to sell it. It's a trade-off. It's always going to be a trade-off. It's never something that is static where it's like, oh, between this time and this time I'm going to do X, Y, and Z and I'm going to have a major benefit from it. It never works out that way. Just like right now, it's like I rarely talk about, people can buy the books at studios.com on these episodes and everything, because it's more about you guys having direct access to me talking about what we love and why we love certain books and certain stories and everything like that, as opposed to me selling say, hey, buy Primetime Saturday Night. It's not about that, but I could be using that time to do X, Y, and Z, and still try to push the books and all this other stuff. But the thing about it is, for me, is more important, not only for myself, but for you to be able to like, hey, let's be fans together. Let's talk about comic books. Let's talk about what we feel and how we feel and where the industry is going and this, that, and the other. Just like on, I believe it was on Friday, I made a comment to Brides for Brides Comics about, I kind of gave up on speculation because of one of the things that happened with Ultimate Fallout 4. Because we was talking, it's like the thing about it that came up was like Ultimate Fallout 4 is now tracking steadily now, and it's like tracking steadily upwards and everything to that magnitude where a 9.8 is, it has stabilized, and we're not going to see any, we're not going to see it drop down and plateau again anytime soon. And I told him, it's like, yeah, that was one book that I had high hopes of, and I got mine graded. Yeah, it's in the nines though, and so I'm not worried about it. I didn't get the 9.8, but it is in the nine. I believe it was a 9.2 or 9.4, but it was in the nines and everything. But it's like, if you really go into that whole speculation game, having a 9.8, which gets you a couple of $1,000 as opposed to a 9.4 that might get you a couple of hundred, it's kind of deflating. Just like I made mention to him about the what was it, the Gotham City Sirens #1 second print. There was, at the time that it was a big to do about that second print, it was trending more towards like $1,000 for that 9.8 because there was only one 9.8 on the census. I sent mine in, hoping for the best here, ended up getting like a 9.4, and I was like, I felt deflated because up here at 9.8, it was getting, about to get ready to hit, 4 digits. My 9.4 is barely like $60. So I was like, okay, so pretty much I got maybe like $20 plus, $20 more than what it cost me to grade it. It's deflating. So it's like, why should I pay any attention to speculation anymore? It's just, in a way, sometimes, raw books just command more than graded books. It is what it is. But that's only when you look at it from the standpoint of monetary value. My major goal as a preservationist, per se, is getting complete runs of stuff, holding on to them, preserving them for a later generation to be able to see the full run, for them to know about what happened in volume 1 of Gotham City Sirens as opposed to volume 2 or 3, and so on and so on. That's the goal of a preservationist, to be quite honest here, to preserve the art form and to preserve what books are there that are available here. That's one of the reasons why I really want to complete volume 1 of Wonder Woman, because as of right now, I think I got everything from like 130 from volume 1 all the way down to where we're at in volume 6. So that's a lot of books. We're talking, a good 600-700 books without skipping a beat. Some I might have extra copies of, so now you're adding a little bit more to it. But having that run and being able to go back to said run and be like, aha, this is what happened, yada yada yada, this is what it looks like, and being able to have it available for things like in museum displays and stuff to that magnitude, to go back and deal with the history of it, speaks more volume to me than, oh, this book is worth, $20,000. $20 could go a long way, but it's still not the same as turning somebody else on 30 years from now, 30 years into the future, onto Wonder Woman and having them to do the hunting and the chasing for books that they love here. But, some people may question, it's like, well, is this genre truly dying? And my answer to them is a definitive yes and no. And you're up here, it's like, how can you say yes or no? Why is it not a definitive yes, it's dying, or a definitive no, it's not dying? The reason is this, and I'm going to have to break it down. And once I break it down, I think we're going to end the episode here. The reason why the question about is the industry dying is a yes or no is mainly because of a couple of things here. Yes, it is dying because as we move further along from generation to generation here, there are, it's not, I won't say there's less readers of the genre of comic books, but the medium itself, the physical medium itself, the physical medium of holding a actual comic book is going away. It's slowly evaporating. And the reason being is that the method of how people partake of comics is eroding because people want everything digital, or the actual publishing companies are looking at the cheapest way to maintain said property. And if that is through digital means here, so be it. Perfect example. Let's look at newspapers. Nobody buys newspapers anymore unless you're one of those few people that want to get the coupons and do the couponing and all this other stuff for sales and everything. Then you might go out and track down a physical newspaper and buy it. Back in the day, newspaper was the way that people partake and got their news here. Nowadays, you have television and you have the internet. Both of those are digital forms of transferring that information. We got Kindle readers now. So now people are not reading as many physical books, which goes back to what I was saying about not having physical copies anymore. Everything is slowly but surely becoming more and more digital. And with that being said, that's the reason why is yes, it can die. The no portion of it is this reason. It can't die because, and I was telling this to a fellow creator here, it can't die because a lot of the IPs that are owned by Marvel and DC and a lot of publishers, especially the legacy characters, such as like your Supermans, your Batmans, your Wonder Womans, your Specters, and all that other stuff, have contracts from the actual creators, or I should say the estate holder of the creators, where built into those contracts that they have to physically publish actual work to maintain the rights to the property. So pretty much for like DC to maintain having the rights of Wonder Woman, they have to still produce Wonder Woman comic books. So that's the reason why it is a no, because you have contracts like that that forces these individual major publishing companies who have the marketing rights and the merchandising rights for these IPs to continue producing these types of books through this medium in such a way to maintain, being able to for you to have that Wonder Woman costume, the Wonder Woman lunchbox, that Batman video game and everything to that magnitude. You know, it is what it is. That's the reason why it's a no in that aspect. So whenever somebody says like, "Oh, the industry is dying," you kind of could come back. It's like, well, it can't die the way that you think it is here. However, it is dwindling down because the younger generations are not seeing the medium as we see it in the physical form. It is being, one of the things that I can honestly say is that the digital form of a lot of comic books is out there. It's out there. I'm not saying that it can't be done. It is literally out there. I mean, we still have the Comixology on Amazon. We do have Global Comics. We do have things like Webtoons and other platforms like Newgrounds and stuff. But the problem here is when we start when comic books start playing the game of collectability and a collectible item like they have been treated over like the last 2 decades, that dwindling death is going to come because they're not being marketed as the new up and coming stories. They are being marketed as buy this David Nakayama cover of this particular issue of this title. Oh, don't worry about the story, but you love the artwork that David Nakayama does. Buy it for the cover, and pay us 5 times as much of the cover price to get that one cover because it is collectible. That's part of the death of it. That's part of the decline. That's part of why it's dying because nobody is. Well, I shouldn't say nobody is reading the story because you have old heads like me that's still reading the story, buy these books and still pick them up and read them for the story aspect of it. But the major corporations are not putting any money in the stories anymore. They're not marketing the stories. They're not marketing the creative teams or the actual storyline itself. They're marketing the collectability. So if you like a Christy Zulu cover, they're going to market Christy Zulu. They're going to market the cover that she does. But they're not going to tell you too much about what's going on in that title. Let alone tell you anything that's going on story-wise and why you should like the overall title. And this is the hard pill to swallow. For those who love Batman, they're going to pick up things related to Batman. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to read a Batman story. They might pick up a Batman comic book just because the cover looks cool, where Batman looks cool in the cover. And that's the only reason why they picked it up. That's just the nature of the beast nowadays, as opposed to when, people of my generation and generation before, we pick up comic books because we were being entertained. We loved the stories up in it. It wasn't just solely based upon the art. It's based upon how the story was being told and we was able to follow it. Also, we also have the thing about attention deficit, meaning that we get one comic book a month and it's a serial. And for those who don't understand the term serial in this case, and when I say serial, we're talking about serial. A serial is a sequence. It's a sequence of episodes, volumes, where a story is being told. Your most classic serials are pretty much like your soap operas or your television shows that has, every week. And now with binging now, Every time a new series come out on Netflix, it goes 10 episodes, and each one of those episodes is technically part of a serial that makes up that one season. So you have to think about serials as, you know, any type of IP that runs across multiple episodes or multiple issues or multiple volumes. So when you think about comic books in today's sense, most people not going to wait a month for the next part of the series, let alone let the book be late, meaning that instead of 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, a quarter. People nowadays would have, with the shorter attention spans, would forget about that title and move on to something else. Another reason why comic books may die. But technically, a lot of these publishers can't stop publishing the stuff because they will lose the rights to some of the characters. And let's just say, I don't think DC is not going to stop producing Batman books and lose the merchandising rights of Batman in that aspect here. Not going to happen. However, if they do get to the point where all Batman books get delayed several months, you're going to see a major fallout with a lot of Batman readers because they are going to end up moving on to something else. So that's the teeter-totter, if I could say, the teeter-totter aspect of the yes and no aspect of, is the industry really dying? And on that note, we have ran at least 1 hour here. So I'm happy that we have gotten to that point. It is 11 o'clock on the East Coast, 10 o'clock, 10:09 here in the Midwest, and probably somewhere about 8 o'clock on the West Coast here. So for everybody, I'm going to give you the rest of your Saturday back, unless you guys got other questions here, like how Tom Sawyer did early on here. So I'm going to give you guys a couple of moments here to see if there's any more questions that you guys have. And like I said before, From the Desk of the Small Press Publisher is more about you guys. You guys have access to me, and we'll talk about how the comic book industry is, what it's like to publish, whether it be self-published or be published by somebody else. There's a lot of things that people need to know about this industry, especially if you're trying to come out here as a creator, whether it be a writer or artist, a jack of all trades in some form or some fashion here. So I make myself available to you guys on Saturdays to we talk about all the different stuff that's happening here. It just so happens like the last 2 Saturdays, I really didn't have much to talk about here, but the thing about it is, like, I don't like talking about the similar stuff that everybody else is talking about. I was like, yeah, I could play the 10 underrated series in my opinion type, episodes and play, do all that type of stuff. But I want to see how you guys, what things that you guys like, and we could talk about what you guys like and what I like, and really piggyback off of one another. And you might turn me on to something that I might like, and we talk more about it later on in the next episode. You never know. But that's what it's like to be in the fandom of comic books. We always have to turn one another on to the next big thing here. And something that may not be my cup of tea might be something ultra big to somebody else here. I mean, just like with Tom Sawyer, it's like he mentioned Batman. I'm not a big Batman fan, but we was able to talk Batman without me going like, oh, boo, his. It's like, no, you like Batman? Cool. Let's talk about Batman. And I can tell you why I don't like Batman. We talked about Batman Beyond, which was kind of cool itself because Batman Beyond is great. I like Terry McGinnis as a possible Batman. Just like I wish more people would understand my love for Thomas Wayne Flashpoint Batman. But that's just the nature of the beast here. There's some things within comic fandom that, let's just say, it's not as, if I could say, friendly, but that's the thing. Each one of us has to make this hobby one that everybody can enjoy. Yeah, we could be a bit selfish as far as why we like something and take some things near and dear to our hearts here, then that's perfectly okay. But the thing about it is that there should not be any gatekeeping. There's always going to be room at the table to be a fan of this medium. Always room. Whether we like it for the exact same reason, that's neither here nor there. If we do like it, so be it. If we don't like it for the same reason, that's even better because now we have even more stuff to talk about because we could compare and contrast and really delve into why we like what we like. That's the true attitude that you need to have here. And with that being said, and without any more questions or comments, I'm going to bid you guys adieu. As I always say, live life, grow, and be well. If you do have a chance, check out my wares at excegencystudios.com. And I'm going to let you have the rest of your Saturday. Enjoy it. I see you guys next week. And for those who participate in Comic Book Spectrum, I'll see you guys Thursday. So, adios, be well, and we're out of here. Later.